Good evening, everybody. I'm Gib Vaconi. I'm the chair of the Prospect Heights Development Council, and I'd like to welcome you to our 2023 annual meeting. I'd like to acknowledge our board members, and for those of you who are present, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hands as I call your name so folks know who you are, that would be terrific. I'll start with our vice chair, Saskia Haggins, our treasurer, Richard Roth, our secretary, Emily Liu, and our at-large members, Al Bass, Raquel White, and Rafael Murtil. Now, we're going to open tonight with a special presentation from two representatives from the Prospect Park Alliance, Deborah Kirshner and Rob Garcia. And they're going to give us a presentation on some proposed renovation for the Vale, which I guess is sometimes also known as the Vale of Kashmir. I will now go ahead and turn it over to Deborah.
Thanks so much, Gib. Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah Kirshner with Prospect Park Alliance. I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me for one moment. Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar with Prospect Park Alliance, we're a nonprofit organization. We operate Prospect Park in partnership with the city. We've been around for a little over 35 years. And in that time, we've done a significant amount of restoration work in the park. In fact, we were recognized last year by the Landmarks Conservancy for the work we've done over our 35-year history. So that was really exciting. The primary focus of our work is actually natural areas restoration, conservation, and education. So that's where a bulk of our operating budget goes into. We sustain the park's woodlands. We do significant amount of native plantings and also take care of the water course. And of course, we have an in-house office of design and construction. I'm very lucky to be here tonight with Rob Garcia, one of our talented landscape architects. Just to orient you to the Vale. The Vale is a landscape that borders 5th Flatbush Avenue from Grand Army Plaza to just north of the zoo. It's about 27 acres and our restoration site is 10 acres. It's two landscapes that Rob will talk more about with you, but one is what had been in like 100 years ago, it was a rose garden, and in recent years, it's sort of been a disused area with some defunct fountains. And then another area called the Children's Pool, which is a historic water feature that dates back to Olmsted and Box. This area of the park has not been touched by restoration for over 50 years. So it's been a large focus of ours. We've been kind of chipping away at the area with various projects. We had funding from the borough president to restore the Flatbush Avenue perimeter. We got funding from Mayor de Blasio to restore the Grand Army Plaza berms and the arch, which is a project that's currently underway. We had state funding to do some significant woodland restoration in the area. And we also restored the Endale Arch through private funding, which is one of our more successful projects. It's a really beautiful historic arch right at the entrance to the Long Meadow at Grand Army Plaza. The Vale project was really interesting for us because the Children's Pool is a pretty straightforward restoration, as Rob will show you, but the former Rose Garden had changed a number of times over its history. It was originally the park's first playground. It actually housed the park's first carousel. Then it became a formal rose garden. And then over time, the city wasn't really able to take care of the formal rose garden, and they replanted it with lawns and with concrete basins that were supposed to be decorative fountains. But the story goes that the fountains became defunct after maybe 1 year of operation, or maybe almost immediately. So it's an area that the Alliance takes care of from like a woodland restoration perspective. And the Parks Department obviously does basic maintenance, but it's in need of restoration. And because it had changed over time, it's one of the few areas of the park where we really had a chance to rethink what it would be. So we engaged a firm called Hester Street. They're like an urban planning firm that works a lot with communities to really engage the community around ideas for the Vale. We did 2 years worth of outreach. We engaged over 2,000 park patrons, and came up with a vision for the Vale that we were lucky enough to get funded through Mayor de Blasio. It's a $40 million project. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Rob, who's going to walk you through the project, just so you know in terms of where we are with it. We received the funding at the end of 2021. We dedicated 2022 to doing additional community outreach and then going into design. And where we are right now is we are taking the design and we are putting it through the public review process. So we presented it to various community groups. We actually presented it to the Brooklyn Borough Board, which is the convening of all the borough boards across the borough, community boards across the borough. And we're getting prepared next week to present it to the Landmarks Commission, and then it goes to the Public Design Commission. So that's where we are in the process. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Rob.
Hi, Rob Garcia here. So I want to take you through the upper Vale. So the Vale is broken up into two portions. The upper, which is the portion that you're looking at now, which was the Rose Garden previously. And then the lower Vale, which is what we'll see in a little bit here, which is the lower portion, which would be the children's pond, children's pool. So the upper Vale consists of 4 elements. The first element is a pollinator meadow with an arbor that overlooks it. The second element in the middle is a natural exploration area. And on the left side, the third element would be a lawn and seating area. And then the fourth would be the Northeast Pavilion, which is more or less a comfort station with some storage for staff. So a zoom in of the south end of the site, the pollinator meadow. So you would enter at the top right through an ADA path, and the path would take you up to the arbor, the planted arbor that would overlook pollinator meadow. This is really just a great place for pollinator species. So with this area, really trying to bring back a lot of habitat, introduce new habitat, and this will connect to the greater woodland area and habitat creation. So these are just some views. So as you walk up on the right, you see the pollinator meadow. Just in the distance, you'll see the arbor. Once underneath the arbor, you'll have a trail on the left that takes you down to the lower Vale. And then on the right, you'll be able to look out into the pollinator meadow, almost like a viewing area. Moving along the path, starting from the bottom right, will take you to the natural exploration area, which is really an explorative area where kids can climb on logs, structures. We will have a dry bed pump, so similar to what is done in Zucker, where you can pump the water and kids can interact with the water. Really just an area for kids to explore with nature. There are just some options and views. Really trying to incorporate all 5 senses so that everyone of all abilities can feel included into the space. And then there's the lawn area that will, so then you have the Northeast Pavilion on the left-hand side that overlooks the lawn area. And so it's just passive recreation, sitting, picnicking, and then the Northeast Pavilion will have a greenwood, which we'll get into later. Just a view looking from again, you can see how we tried to really tuck in this comfort station into the greater landscape. And then so the Northeast Pavilion on the left-hand side, outlined. So on the first floor, you'll see that there's public bathrooms, and then storage for staff that we have to maintain the space. So what Deborah didn't mention is we have an endowment, and we'll have set staff in this area to maintain the landscape. Oh, sorry, next Deborah. And then on top of the first floor, you'll have a covered terrace, which you'll be able to access from the upper path that leads to the East Drive. And then on top of that, you'll have an intensive green room. So this kind of puts it all together, starting from the green roof on top. Then you have that upper terrace, which you can look out into the landscape and see down the long view. And then down below, you have the bathrooms. A lot of these materials are pulled from LaFrac. So we're really trying to be sensitive to materials that we already see in the park. And then by tucking it into the landscape, we're trying to keep it hidden, but also allow people to enjoy it. Again, just a view to see how we're being sensitive to the surrounding landscape of this building. And this is a view that you'll see coming from Grand Army Plaza. You really won't see the building until you get right next to it on those trails. And then a view coming from the East Drive looking to that upper terrace. Moving on to the Lower Vale, which is just south of the site that we were just talking about. So this is really a restoration project. We will restore the granite coping and the pillars that are there currently. The brick path will be relaid and restored. Everything will become ADA accessible. And then the inner peninsulas, we're going to reintroduce the natural edge to help with habitat, and then remove all the invasive species and replant with habitat creators and pollinators. We are also introducing or reconstructing the marble balustrade that existed with the Medkey medium white design on the left side. The pond will also get a new liner and a new circulation system to keep it from becoming stagnant. This is the view looking south from those north stairs. You'll see the balustrade on the left and right side, and then the natural edge in the background of the peninsulas. Then this is looking down on the right side, looking north at that long walkway, and then to the left, you'll see how this is becoming just a wonderful place to observe habitat and for habitat to enjoy. To separate and keep people out of peninsulas, or deter people from going into the peninsulas, we're going to install a fence, and that will kind of allow people to enjoy birds and other wildlife without feeling the need to go in. And so each one will be able to have their own space. So just a timeline, as Deborah said, we're in the public review process right now. This summer we'll be starting construction documentation. And then once all of that gets approved, we'll be going into procurement. And so really we're looking at construction probably winter of next year, and then hopefully an opening the summer of the year fall. I believe it's the last slide, right, Deborah?
Yeah, that's our presentation. So Gib, if anyone has any questions for us, I've been trying to keep up a little bit in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, we have a couple minutes for Q&A. Really appreciate the presentation. It looks terrific. I'm very excited personally about the restoration of the Vale. Would anybody, does anybody have questions they'd like to ask of the Prospect Park Alliance? If you can raise hands, please. I'll try to call on you as I see you.
There's one in the chat.
About bike storage, I just saw that pop up. No,
Do you
bikes
mean-
aren't allowed.
Yeah, I guess,
Sure.
Rob, I have a question though. I don't know if she means storage or bike racks to park bikes.
Bike rack, sorry.
Okay.
At close to like both at Grand Army Plaza or on Flatbush, any of the entrances into the park, will there be more places to
Good.
park your bike so people can bike to the park and take advantage
Yeah.
of the area and then be able to just park their bikes? Because that's not a bike
Yeah.
path. You can't really bike down there. So
Right. Yeah,
and a
Rob,
lot
do
of-
you know if that's part of the fixtures or furnishings for the site proper?
Not for the site proper, but it is something we should consider.
Yeah, we can,
Not for this project, but for the future moving forward.
yeah, I can ask my colleagues. I think we might have done some bike racks along Flatbush when we restored the perimeter, but I'll check. Actually, Rob, maybe you and I
Yeah.
both can check back with our colleagues on that. But that's
Yeah,
a
I
really
do
good
know-
point.
Sorry, Deborah, I do know there is a city bike station outside the Flatbush entrance.
Yes.
So that's one way to provide more access. But I understand the need.
Yeah, I see another, well, there's some, oh, Jeff, you have your hand raised, but I see your comment. You asked about all of the
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
that are
that's my question.
happening. Yeah, that's actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, because one thing we didn't mention is that as part of this project, we're going to be fencing in that entire area since we're going to be there anyway and doing the construction, and we're going to be taking it offline and doing like significant restoration in that area and fencing it in for a number of years. And we might actually, as you've seen in other parts of our woodlands, like make that fencing permanent. So we are going to try to address that whole course and get rid of it and rebuild it with wildlife habitat. So
That's
And
great.
then
so
Yeah.
we're
others-
excited for that. It's like 3 acres of woodlands. And like, I think as Rob was saying, like we're really trying to create a pollinator corridor across the entire park. So the green roof and the meadow in our restoration area are pollinator focused, and the 3 acres just south of it that we're going to be fencing in will also be pollinator focused.
Great, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Since I don't see more, and we do have a big agenda tonight, I'm going to now move on with the meeting, but I want to once again thank Deborah and Rob from Prospect Park Alliance for joining us this evening. That was a great presentation, very helpful to understand what the plans are.
Thank you so much. I would just say I'll put in the chat, but if anyone has any questions, they can email community@prospectpark.org and we can get back to them. Okay,
Very good. Thanks again.
thanks. Bye.
And before we go on to call the meeting to order, I'd like to recognize Assemblymember Robert Carroll, who's here this evening. Assemblymember, would you like to say a couple words?
Sure. Good evening, Gib. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to be here. And I want to thank the Prospect Park Alliance for that great presentation about the Vale of Cashmere. It looks like a phenomenal thing. But for those who don't know me, I'm Assemblymember Robert Carroll. And because of redistricting, I now represent a good portion of Prospect Heights. So it's really good to be here because I know how important planning our neighborhoods are and making sure that they're well maintained and there are community voices. And under that vein, I would like to announce that on March 23rd, Thursday, March 23rd at 6:30 p.m. at PS9, we're going to be having a town hall to talk about what's going on in the state budget and also how my office can be helpful to the residents of Prospect Heights as well as the other neighborhoods that I represent. So please come to that. Gib, I will make sure that I get you all the information so you can disseminate it out to the group. And we'll be sending it out to all the other important groups in Prospect Heights. But that's all that I have right now. If anybody has a burning question for me, happy to answer it, but I know you have a full agenda.
Assemblymember Carroll, could you just repeat the date and time for the event, please?
Sure, it's Thursday, March 23rd. The doors will open at 6:30 and it will start at 7. It'll be a town hall on the state budget, as well as we'll have some other kind of state resources there for folks who are interested. And also for individuals to get to know my staff. My district office is on 7th Avenue, between 13th and 14th Street. And my telephone number is 718-788-7221. And just so people know that I am your new state assembly member and looking to just make sure that we're representing the community. And when we have a formal flyer, which we should have early next week, we'll make sure to get that out to everybody.
Thank you very much. Be happy to promote that event. So yeah, when you have the details, let us know. Thanks for
Fantastic.
joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I'm going to now call the meeting to order. I see that we do have a quorum for this evening's meeting, and I want to once again welcome all of you to the 2023 annual meeting for the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. For those of you who might be attending this meeting for the first time, the Prospect Heights Development Council's mission is to bring members of the Prospect Heights community together to build a safer, more just, and sustainable neighborhood. And we were organized in 2004 and now have grown to a membership of about 186. Appreciate all of our members who are here with us this evening. Our first order of business for this evening is the minutes of the October 27th meeting. These were distributed to members with the materials for this meeting. So I'll go ahead and ask if there are any questions or comments on the distributed minutes. And again, you're welcome to raise your hand. Seeing no questions, I'll ask if there is a motion to adopt the minutes as distributed and waive the reading. Members, you're welcome to make a motion by just unmuting yourself and moving.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'm sorry, who was that? That was Carrie?
Carrie.
Moved by Carrie. Do I have a second? Looks like a second by Al. And is there any objection? Hearing none, the minutes of the October 27th meeting are adopted and the reading waived. I'm going to take a second now, if you will bear with me, to make a brief report about some of the things that have happened since the October 27th annual meeting. This has been, in general, the last 12 months have really been a year of growth for PHNDC. We've grown in membership. We now are, entering into our 4th year of a very ambitious Open Street program here in Prospect Heights, which you'll hear more about later. Given the scope of our organization today, we've been working on trying to build some additional support in the form of policies, in the form of committees to better handle some of the work we take on, and also some additional work to improve and make more robust our record keeping. So just to briefly tell you a little bit about what some of these initiatives have been, the board has adopted a pair of policies, an MWBE policy that is intended to manage and hopefully increase our operation with minority and women-owned businesses for the contracts that we let for Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. The board's also adopted a DEI policy, a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy intended to help us monitor our activities as an organization and make sure that we are doing an effective and appropriate job, including all members of the Prospect Heights community and representing a diverse set of viewpoints in the work that we do. We've set up a number of committees that are going to help better manage the work of PHNDC. The first one of those is the technology that I'll mention is the Technology Committee. This committee is chaired by Aidan Feldman and co-chaired by Phil Godson. The Technology Committee will help to bring some structure to the way we use various kinds of systems and processes to get our work done. We've established a development committee that's chaired by Catherine Pangaro and co-chaired by Jen McNamee. Fundraising is an increasingly important part of our work here, and we're delighted to have both of them helping to grow it further. Both have been instrumental in helping to fund the Open Streets programs over the last 3 years. Our Economic Development Committee is chaired by Anu Heda and co-chaired by Emily Liu. We want to better engage businesses in the Prospect Heights area and reach out to that part of the community, and they'll have a focus on that. We've created a committee which we've titled the Volunteer Experience Committee. This is chaired by Steve Flack and co-chaired by Carrie Tan. And our goal here is to provide more of a full life cycle experience to people who volunteer for our various programs. The Open Streets programs have attracted a lot of volunteers. It's absolutely wonderful to see people engaged and out working with us in public spaces. We have people who've contributed significant amounts of efforts in other programs as well. And we want to have an increased focus in making sure that the opportunities we have for volunteering in Prospect Heights are really being introduced to people who whose interests match them. And then this year we have made a slight reorganization of our what was known as our Vanderbilt Avenue Committee into our Open Streets Committee. We've in that sense merged the program for Vanderbilt Avenue and the program for Underhill Avenue, so they're all under a common set of leadership and resources. And then finally, we have retained a bookkeeping firm and an accounting firm to better maintain records for the council. We found that as our activity has increased around some of the programs I've described, bookkeeping and accounting has become a much bigger commitment than it was before, and we want to make sure that we're discharging that responsibility with the highest level of standards. So you'll hear a little bit more about that in our next report. So thanks for all of you bearing with me on that, but I do think that that's important information to share with you all. I'm next going to turn things over to our treasurer, Rick Roth, to make a financial report for the first half of the fiscal year.
Yes, hi, good evening. I want to talk about our new financial statements that we, as part of going with a new bookkeeper and an accountant, our financial statements have taken a different look. And what we're reporting on tonight is going to be from July 1st to December 31st last year. In the future, we're going to be reporting to the membership on our fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th. So there will be another report at our October meeting that will cover the full year. For this year, and I believe we sent out the statements that everyone could have a copy of it. Our balance sheet is very simple. We show what we have in the bank as well as at PayPal, and we're now treating PayPal as if it's another bank as far as showing it on our financial statements. So any money going into PayPal, any contributions or any payments going to PayPal will be treated immediately as part of our cash on hand. And we have a balance there, $38,000, just over that. And we have no liabilities. We have the money that we have is either restricted or unrestricted. And this is something new that we're showing on our financial statements. And it's a legal requirement of when something is restricted versus unrestricted. And I'll give you just a couple of examples. If we get a contribution for holiday lights, that is restricted. We're required to spend that on holiday lights, and that's considered restricted. Unrestricted might be dues. Another unrestricted would be payments that we receive at Open Streets. We sometimes receive payments for allowing someone to set up a booth or for corporate sponsorships for banners, those are unrestricted. And you'll see, just when you see the term restricted and unrestricted, keep in mind what those mean. In the past, we used to show on our balance sheet directly the amounts that were held in the conduits. And by the conduits, these are things like we would create a conduit for different local block associations if they had received a contribution, say, from a TV production. They would have it come to us because we're 501c3, and we would hold that and let them direct how we spent it. And we still have those conduits, and so we have a few of those conduits with a relatively small amount of money in them. The one that we do have is Holiday Lights. That does have a large amount of money in it right now because we received contributions last year of over $12,000, plus we had carried forward some money from the prior year. And so we have 16,000. We expect to be invoiced for about 11,000. And the reason we're going to have extra funds there is because we were limited to the number of strands of light we could put up this year, so that the amount that we spent on Holiday Lights was actually a little less. And the last part, just to talk about it quickly, is what would be called a P&L we call it a statement of activities. And because we're showing for 6 months, and the bulk of everything we do is related to Open Streets financially, we spent a lot more than we received in those 6 months. But in the first part of the year, which is not part of these statements, we actually have received a lot more. So it shows that at the end of the year, we do have net assets. This is after taking into account spending $123,000 and bringing in $39,000, which is a deficit of $84,000. We still have a balance, and this matches the balance sheet of $38,064. I didn't discuss how we go from restrictions or non-restrictions, but that's our balance. We will have another report in October. Are there any questions?
All right, seeing none.
Sorry, I do have a question, actually.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
That's Denny Dionker.
Oh, hi, Denny, how are you? Go ahead.
I'm good, Gib. How are you?
Good.
I just wondered, the professional expenses, that's $74,843. That was for the bookkeeper and the accountant?
No, it's mostly for the marshals that we had during the Open Streets. It's mostly for that, but it is the bookkeeper and the accountant, but that's just a small part of that money.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I don't know if there are any other questions about that.
All right, well, I don't see any, so I guess we'll move on. Rick, thank you very much. And all of the members, you can look forward to seeing more complete financial reporting like we presented this evening going forward. I don't want to put him on the spot, but I see that State Senator Bridgeport has just joined us, and so I want to recognize him and ask him if he is interested in saying a few words.
Absolutely, Gib. Sorry I came so late. I stopped by the Borough President's Black History Month celebration. So I just came by to say hi to everyone. It's always a pleasure to see the great work you're doing. Yes, checking in if anybody needs anything from me. I'll put my email address in the chat, but always a pleasure to see everyone here at Prospect Heights. Happy Black History Month and have a great night.
Thanks, Senator Bridgeport. Welcome. Glad to have you with us as always. We're going to continue now to one of the important aspects of our annual meeting, and that is the annual election of officers. I'm now going to turn the meeting over to our Vice Chair, Saskia Hagens.
Yes, thank you. All right. Our next order of business is the election for the 24 and the 25 terms. I will provide the instructions as follows. All the members of the council who are in good standing are eligible to cast votes. To be in good standing, a member must be current on payments of dues. You must have been a member of the council for at least 6 months as of today, and you must have attended one of the last 2 general meetings of the council. I'm now going to send everyone who is a member in good standing an email with the link to the online ballot. So those should be arriving in your inbox promptly. If you do not within the next seconds or minutes receive a ballot and you believe you are actually in good standing, then please raise your hand or let us know in the chat, and we will check what happened there. But everyone who's present at the meeting who is in good standing should be arriving currently a link with the ballot. You may want to check your spam folder if you don't see it in your inbox. All right, while we wait for those emails to come in, I'll explain what we're doing here. In according with our council's bylaws, the council's board appointed a nominating committee to form a slate of candidates for directors to be elected at this meeting. And the slate of candidates was nominated was published to the members with notice of this meeting on January 6th. We did not receive any petitions for additional candidates, and your ballot contains 1 candidate for chair, 1 candidate for secretary. There are 2 candidates for 1 position for at-large director with a 1-year term until 2024, and 3 candidates for 2 at-large positions to serve for the 25 term, so 2-year term. I will read.
I didn't get mine yet, D. Regan.
All right, you should be receiving one.
Okay.
Stand by, please. And again, please do check your spam folder in case your email provider thinks the ballot I just sent you is spam. All right, I will read the names of the candidates for office, and I'm asking every one of you who's present to announce as such. For chair, we have Gib Vucconi.
No, I did not get it.
For secretary, Emily Liu. At-large director for the 24 term, we have 2 candidates for 1 position, Jason Simmerall and Austin Smith.
I did not get it.
For at-large directors for the 2-year term until 25, Steve Flagg, Phil Godson, and Wagay Johannes.
Honey, you just hide the bios are there. I gotta do this.
All right. I know there are a few people who think they're in good standing and have not received a ballot. We'll try to address that shortly. Please stand by.
Saskia, do we have to vote right now?
Yeah, hi, my name is Mary Dale, and I don't seem to have received a ballot.
We're looking into several of you right now, so just please bear with us for a minute. Dee, have you received your ballot at this point?
No, but I did, after Ed voted, I was able to then go on his and do it afterwards.
You should have received one.
Nope, didn't get it, and I checked spam as well. But I did vote, so got it.
Yeah, hi, this is Mary Dale. I did not receive a ballot.
Yeah.
Is there anybody
Uh,
else? Or is it
Yeah,
just you and
Saskia,
I?
this is Rick Roth. I sent you a note saying that Mary and I are now in good standing because I paid our dues to the treasurer. I,
You should both have received a ballot, Rick.
just now,
Can you
okay.
see, can you see the email that it went to?
It seems that everyone is missing their ballot has AOL addresses. Not
Well,
making any
yeah.
statement, but I'm just noticing
No,
that.
it's because
They were
we have
sent out.
AOL. Yeah, no, we have AOL because of the better privacy. of
I'm
voting by it.
using the email address that's on file. Everyone who so far has not received their ballot that I did send has an AOL address. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I haven't gotten
So
it
it
yet.
has, its privacy is considered superior to some of like, Gmail.
If
So
I
people
may,
prefer it sometimes.
if I may, for those of you, several of you who said you didn't receive ballots, I have sent you a private chat with the link. So I suggest you check your
Okay.
chat.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there still anyone missing the link? Who believes they are in good standing? Rob, I'm sending you one now, Rob with a web.
It looks like Henry has a question.
I'm also not sure whether I'm in good standing. I know I've paid dues.
I will pass that question to the secretary.
This shows pending admission, so I believe you just need to attend in past annual meetings.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You needed to have attended annual meetings in the past, the requisite number, and then so presuming that you attended this one, I assume you'd be in good standing at the next meeting.
Thank you.
There are several people asking how they might attain good standing. I'll repeat again. To be in good standing, you have to be current on your payment of dues, which you can check with the secretary if you're unclear on that. You must have been a member of the council for at least 6 months as of today, and you must have attended one of the last 2 general meetings of the council. So if this is your first meeting you're attending, you're not yet in good standing.
Let's
Is there anyone still waiting for an answer as to whether they should have received a ballot but did not receive one? Okay, I'm not hearing any further ballot requests. So while everyone is voting, I will pass the chair back to Gib.
Yes, I did, honey. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much, Saskia. We'll go on to committee reports while everybody is completing your ballots. The first report is from our development committee. Pardon me. I see that Catherine and Jen are both, I think are both present. Or I saw Jen before, and I definitely see Catherine now. Are one of you able to give a report for the development committee?
Sure, I can jump in and do it.
Oh, there you are.
Hi, my name is Jen, she, her. Catherine and I have been volunteering for the past couple years on Open Streets, helping to get additional funds to support Open Streets in general. So our current standing is we are making a call for more corporate sponsors at this point. So we're in discussions with Chelsea Piers as well as Con Ed and Green Mountain. We'll make a call for additional sponsors, allow the barriers and such in the coming weeks. But near term, we are still in discussions for corporate sponsorships.
Thanks, Jen. Any questions for the development committee? Okay, I'm going to move on to economic development and turn it over to Anu Heda. Anu, would you like to make a report?
Yeah, we don't have a lot to say. We're just starting this committee with the notion of helping support the businesses along Washington Avenue, Vanderbilt, and in between to be more sustainable and more and thrive better as best possible. So we were just Emily and I are just kind of kicking this up in the last couple of weeks.
I want to also point out all of our committees are open for membership to all members of Prospect Heights Neighborhoods Development Council, and you can see a list of them on our website. I'll type the URL in the chat, together with information about contacting the chairs if you're interested in joining. So if you are interested in helping to build our fundraising capabilities or interested in helping to understand more about businesses in Prospect Heights, please reach out to the respective committees and the others we have and get involved. I'm going to now move to the Emergency Preparedness Committee. I don't see Joyce or I don't think I saw Raphael. I'm just looking again. No, I don't see either of them. So I don't know is there anyone else here who is prepared to make a report for emergency preparedness? Okay, we'll move on to housing, and I will make that report. Since the time of our October 27th meeting, we hosted a tenant rights event at Brooklyn Public Library together with Legal Aid Society and justfix.nyc. It was a great meeting, a lot of good information about anti-displacement strategies and resources for tenants in Prospect Heights and the surrounding neighborhoods. We've also continued to maintain a focus on the situation at Atlantic Yards. Recently, some journalists have reported it looks like that it's possible the project terms are being renegotiated. That hasn't been announced formally, but this is something we're obviously very concerned about because we were involved in negotiating the deadline for the 2025 affordable housing requirement, which at this point looks like it's probably not achievable. So we've talked about that before, but this is an area that we continue to follow very, very closely. Being able to continue development of affordable housing at Atlantic Yards is dependent on building a platform over the rail yards between Carlton Avenue, Vanderbilt Avenue, Atlantic Avenue, and Pacific Street. That work hasn't begun yet, and because it hasn't begun, there's really no potential that buildings will be able to be occupied by May of 2025. So we will continue to monitor and keep everybody updated as to the progress there. A couple of folks on this call are also participating in what's known as the Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use Plan. It's a community planning effort being sponsored by Councilmember Hudson. It builds upon work done by Brooklyn Community Board 8, and it includes a stretch of Atlantic Avenue. It notionally includes Atlantic Avenue from Flatbush Avenue to Nostrand. In terms of the rezoning expectation, it's really Atlantic from Vanderbilt, the south side of Atlantic from Vanderbilt down to about Franklin in our community district. That's also a project that we're following closely. We are announcing the public meetings for the Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use Plan, and anyone who is interested in weighing in on either housing or streetscapes and traffic issues or economic development and workforce issues as part of that plan is encouraged to attend those meetings. So we'll continue to publish those in our bulletins. Any questions about the Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use Plan, Atlantic Yards, or tenant issues in Prospect Heights that I can take? Seeing none, I'm going to smoothly transition to the next committee report, which is the Landmarks Committee. As Mary Shuford is not able to join us for the meeting tonight, I am the co-chair of that committee as well, so I'll make that presentation. Since the October 27th general meeting, the Landmarks Committee has reviewed 2 applications for what's known as a certificate of appropriateness in the Prospect Heights Historic District. These are projects where property owners apply to make changes that are generally speaking, publicly visible to their buildings. We have testified on both of those applications, and currently no other COAs are pending for us that I know of. We're also looking to reconvene with Councilmember Hudson to discuss reapproaching the Landmarks Commission with respect to the Prospect Heights Apartment House District designation. A date for that meeting is still pending. Now I'll be happy to answer any questions on landmarks. Seeing none, we will move to the next item, which is the Livable Streets Committee, and I will call on Michael Lazar to make that presentation.
Thank you, Gib. On behalf of Saskia, Matthew, and myself, first just wanted to say thank you to our departing board members. I know a couple of you all are stepping down this year, and wanted to thank you for your leadership of PHNDC over the past few years. It's been a pleasure working with you all. The Livable Streets Committee is looking forward to making 2023 a year about cleaning the neighborhood, taking care of our trees, and addressing issues around sanitation and rats to make our neighborhood more beautiful and safer and cleaner. So in that effort, today we had an event in partnership with Big Reuse, which is a nonprofit, as well as Council Member Hudson's office, where we did some street tree care on Washington Avenue. I think today was a great success, and we look forward to doing more of these events in the future. We also have a neighborhood cleanup planned for next month, a date to be determined soon, but the hope is to do a neighborhood cleanup ahead of the launch of the Open Streets restaurants program on Vanderbilt for the spring season. Additional efforts underway include a commercial waste event in partnership with the local restaurants to try to figure out a way, and the Center for, and the Center for Zero Waste Design to find a way to better reuse waste in our neighborhood and on behalf of local businesses. And we've been addressing issues around rats and composting. Many of you may have noticed the new compost bins in our neighborhood. Those are great. At the same time, we're also seeing that those are overflowing. And so we are clearly heavy users of composting, and we are working with DSNY to either arrange extra pickups, additional bins, or try to prioritize our use or our, I guess, spot in the line for the rollout of street side composting ahead of October this year. So lots of exciting things happening. Happy to take questions, and it would encourage anyone who's interested in these topics to come to our regular meetings. Feel free to reach out. We're excited about what we're doing and look forward to being in touch. Yep, go ahead, Anurag.
Hey, two quick questions. One on the compost. I've kind of reverse engineered. I think the pickups are Sunday overnight to Thursday overnight, but is that right? Do you know what the pickup nights are?
I do not personally know that. I believe Brunhilde, who is on our committee, is working on addressing that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to.
Yeah. I don't know if she knows either, but I believe she is taking.
We only know, I've never heard it officially, but looking every morning, I see that every morning it's green, apart from Sunday morning. And in the process of contacting the sanitation department, I know Matt Weinstein has already done that and didn't have any results, just because, of course, it is, well, very, they have lots of other things going on. So I don't know if I'm going to be successful, but we'll definitely try. But it has been discussed also with the council member Hudson.
Yeah, and wow, so the same thing as you, Brunhilde, looking at the app every morning, like amazing. I don't know what the right word is, if it's socioeconomic dividers or whatever, but you just see how quickly it turns red on Vanderbilt and how green it stays as you head east.
Exactly.
So that's kind of amazing. All right, great. Hey, Michael, just other questions, like, with all the sewer work over on like Sterling and Vanderbilt towards the park, like, is there a consolidated calendar of different public service utilities, I guess you call them, to help understand like what's going to happen when, like, gas lines, electricity, I guess phone and sewer and water? Like, is there some way to see like a Gantt chart or something of like how those things roll out?
Speaking like a consultant over here, as a former consultant, a Gantt chart would be nice. I don't know if there is one, but we can follow up on it. I'll let you know.
Yeah, it'd be great. On Dean, I kind of have rumors that the sewer is going to start, but I kind of don't know when and where and how. That'd be nice to know.
Yeah, of course. Lisa, I also see your hand up.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
My name's Lisa, and I love everything you guys have been doing, especially the park presentation, and I'm really loving the compost bins. I hope that we get more, and they're just fantastic. My question is about the Open Streets program. I live on Underhill and Dean, and I got to be honest, it's been just a total nightmare for me and my neighbors, because a lot of the traffic that is pushed off of Vanderbilt comes onto Underhill and Dean. And literally, everybody's trying to leave in the summer, starting at 5. It's nonstop horns, traffic, exhaust. I can't open the windows. And because the streets are closed, there's no parking on Vanderbilt. So everybody's very aggressively driving around my neighborhoods, trying to park, honking their horns. How can I bring up these concerns for someone who, and the other thing that I don't really understand is that there are 2 blocks, the one with the supermarket, there's a couple blocks that nobody ever sits out on. So I'm not sure why the entire street is shut down.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you for raising the concern, and obviously we empathize with your position. Sorry you're dealing with that. We do have actually a separate Open Streets committee, so we will probably get to that report imminently. I don't know exactly what the order of operations are tonight, but I'm certain that there is a forum for you to raise that, and we're taking note of it right now. But yeah, you are not the first, nor will you be the last person who has concerns about some of the operations around Open Streets. And I hope that our track record has shown we try to work closely with our neighbors to make it, to adapt as we go and try to make it as viable as possible. So noted, and let's maybe bring that up in the Open Streets Committee going forward. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, Gabe, I was told to be quick. I'll pass it back to you unless there are any other pressing questions, and I'll put my email in chat if anyone wants to follow up with me directly.
All right, thank you, Michael. We're going to now, as Michael mentioned, move on to the Open Streets Committee report, and I'm going to turn the program over to Saskia.
Hi everyone, it's Saskia once again. My pronouns are they, them, and for this upcoming season, myself and Catherine will be chairing the new merged Open Streets Committee. We'll be operating both the Underhill and the Vanderbilt Open Street. The Underhill Open Street, as you know, is year-round. Vanderbilt will be returning April 21st. Again, Friday afternoons, evenings, and Saturdays and Sundays. We're hoping for a full program again, like you've become familiar with the last several years, and are also working on making the operation more professional, more sustainable, and future-proof. So that both in terms of the organizing on our end, but also in terms of the streetscape. And I want to mention that that part which is the perhaps more of a Livable Streets topic, but one goal with our Open Streets program, or something that became a goal as we were running it, is that we realized it's also a great opportunity to sort of reimagine how we're using our public space. And one thing that again, we may not have had in mind from the get-go, but realized in how everyone was enjoying the program and using it, so this is also an opportunity for us as a neighborhood to reimagine how we're using our streetscape. And I think the most tangible outcome of that part of the process so far has been the new Underhill Plaza that some of you may have been involved in early November when we painted this new plaza. And that's really to me, very tangible outcome of the Open Streets program. So that's now a permanent plaza in our neighborhood. And we will also include that in our programming this season. So some of the activities that you previously saw on Underhill on the street will be moving to the plaza this upcoming season. So there's those two parts of the Open Streets program will continue. You may have also noticed on Vanderbilt and on Washington some new curb extensions. Also, again, all outcomes of the Open Streets program. So it sort of goes hand in hand with running the program, the activities on the street, the dining on the street, but also making improvements to our streetscape, making the streets safer for all users, and especially focusing on pedestrians and cyclists. So for this season, again, Vanderbilt will reopen April 21st. I'll give you a few dates. So we'll have next week, March 1, we'll have a kickoff meeting for those who are interested in helping us organize the program. We send out a bunch of emails and other messages about this, but if you're interested in whichever way, volunteering or helping us organize the program, please be in touch if you haven't yet received an invitation. So that will be starting next week. There's a lot, as you might imagine, a lot of behind the scenes organizing that goes into this. Then for people more generally interested in the program, we're planning early April to do a town hall where you can come with all your Open Streets related questions, concerns, and comments. Obviously, I'm happy to take some questions now, but we'll present the larger plan early April. So we'll announce that town hall meeting soon. Yeah, I think those are the most important points for now. So if you're interested in helping us organize this, please reach out. You can drop a message in the chat or reach me otherwise. And then for announcement on the larger program, we'll be back with a town hall meeting dedicated to that early April. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, we have a couple of hands raised. We have some time for questions. Lisa, you had a question before. Are you looking to raise the same question?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just bringing up the same topic.
Yep, do you mind answering the question? Because I need to send a few ballots also in the meantime. Sorry about that. I'm doing double duty here.
That's fine. So Lisa, your question goes to traffic from on Underhill as a function of Vanderbilt being closed for open streets. And then I also heard you ask about closing the block between Prospect Place and Park Place on Vanderbilt Avenue as well. One of the things that's going to change, I think, the profile of traffic on Underhill Avenue for this year's open street season is the plaza that is now in place on the block of Underhill between Atlantic Avenue and Pacific Street. We believe that that's going to significantly limit traffic exposure to Underhill Avenue in general, but especially during times when Vanderbilt is in operation. So I hope that will have some impact on open street traffic that you're describing. Beyond that, if there are other specific pain points in traffic on Underhill that we can discuss with you, we're happy to do that as well. With respect to Vanderbilt Avenue, the extents of the open street on Vanderbilt Avenue mirror the commercial overlay on Vanderbilt Avenue. So all of the blocks on Vanderbilt where we're running an open street are commercially zoned, and that's we're kind of looking to preserve that alignment both now and for the future as other street design changes come to Vanderbilt Avenue. We want to have kind of that contiguous commercial district, but beyond that, in fact, we use the block between Prospect Place and Park Place quite frequently for programming events that don't work as well on blocks where we have restaurants setting up in the street. We've done larger performance events there. We've done large events that are craft and art events for children, play events for families there as well. So that is an area that we do use for programming during the entire season. It's an important part of the street from our perspective, and it does get quite a bit of use, even if you don't see the same level of restaurant activity that you do on some of the other blocks.
I'll just bring up, and I appreciate your answer, that what I noticed, because I live here, is that it's a lot of traffic coming up Dean Street, circling around Underhill and back down Bergen and Park and St. Mark's looking for parking, because a lot of people come from out of the neighborhood to go to those restaurants. But now that there's no parking on Vanderbilt on either side because the street is closed, they have to park on the residential streets. So that backs the traffic that would be able to go around the block using Underhill now has to go all the way down to Carlton to circle back around. And they get very aggressive because they don't want to do that. And they lean on their horns and they double park. And there's a bar over here, they double park over there because nobody wants to do that huge loop and circle again. And the other thing I'll point out is, especially Fridays, rush hour in the summer, people are going away for the weekend, so there's heavy traffic trying to get out of the neighborhood well before any dinner rush. And it's literally an hour of nonstop horns. And it's very unpleasant to live here with the open streets. I know it's, a fun idea and, it's got a lot of benefits to it, but it's just pushing a lot of that traffic onto smaller streets. So
As I said before, I think you will see the profile of traffic on Underhill this year be somewhat different because of the plaza that's been introduced on Underhill between Pacific and Atlantic. I mean, obviously we'll want to hear, from your experience after the Vanderbilt program has started, but you should also understand that, and you'll hear more about this, by the way, at the meeting Saskia mentioned that will happen later this spring. There's a longer term plan, which actually isn't a very long term. It'll probably happen for the most part before the end of the year, to implement other street improvements on Underhill Avenue that will be traffic calming street improvements that we also believe will have a positive impact on the types of issues that you're mentioning. But beyond that, you brought up an interesting point, which is the question of whether additional traffic or additional demand for on-street parking is being generated from people who are driving to eat on Vanderbilt Avenue. I don't know that. I don't know that that's been studied by us or by DOT, but I think that's something that we could study or we could ask for DOT's help in
I
studying.
can definitely tell you just my, non-scientific thing. So I have a mother I take care of in Staten Island, and I have a car that I have to go back and forth several times a week to help her because she doesn't live by any public transportation. And I have noticed that when I come home during the open streets, I will have to park 3, 4, 5 blocks away, and then I wait until the restaurants are closed at 11, and then there's tons of parking on my street. So I have no issue walking down the street and moving my car. That's not a problem for me. But what that's telling me is that these people who are parking on the residential streets are leaving and going elsewhere when the restaurant's closed. And the other thing I'll just bring up with, I'll just reiterate with the closed part of Underhill, the plaza, is that the traffic is coming up Dean and then going across Underhill and down Bergen. And I'm not sure how that plaza, I don't see it coming up Atlantic. I see it coming up Dean and going up to Washington and then looping around and then coming around Underhill.
Well, it definitely can't come up for Atlantic right now because of
I don't think that's an issue. Yeah.
Okay, so we hear that, and I would like to take back the idea of whether we can figure out if we've got on-street parking that's being generated by demand from outside the neighborhood. I'd like to see if we can get a better handle on that and figure out if there's something that can be done there.
Yeah,
I guess how would one even study that?
I can give you one quick suggestion and then I will stop talking, I promise. There are several big buildings that are being constructed with parking garages, and perhaps you could do some sort of, like you said, corporate sponsorship that if you're eating in one of these restaurants, you get discounted parking or free parking, just to take the burden off the back of the residential people,
It's something that we can consider, but I also think it's very important to be sure we know what the source of the parking is. One of the things, for instance, that I think we would generally prefer is just not to have the parking, not to induce it by giving somebody a deal to park here, but just not have it at all. So we don't have people coming from outside a neighborhood that otherwise has excellent access to transit and trying to park here. I mean, I think if we can incentivize transit instead of driving, I think.
Yeah, but then where do we park, Gib?
Everybody's better ahead.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work because I know there's a bar on Dean, what's it called? Ode to Babel. It gets tons of people coming from outside the neighborhood. It's a very popular, and a lot of people don't live in neighborhoods that have access to public transit. People come from Staten Island, people come from New Jersey.
I understand, but I think the point still applies that we need to understand where they're coming from and where they're going. If they're going to Ode to Babel's not affected by open streets.
No, but I can definitely tell you that every weekend when open streets is in full swing, that once it turns 11:30, there are tons of parking spots on the streets around my apartment. And that tells me it has something to do with the restaurants closing.
As I said, I think we should take that back and see if there's a way we can, we can study it. Just so you understand, we're not trying to encourage people to come to the neighborhood and park here. That isn't any, there's no part of our mission that is interested in that.
I know, but by cutting off access to a major thoroughfare to cars, you're really just pushing it onto the smaller streets where residents live,
Again, we'd have to study it. And I'm not averse to considering how we can do that. I think it makes sense, and let us have a look at that.
Thank you.
Question from Kara.
Hi, thank you. I have similar concerns about open streets, but my concerns are about the bicycles and the motorized bicycles. And I don't know if I'll be able to make the town hall in April, so I just wanted to bring up the concern here. I actually live on Vanderbilt. I have young kids. We loved open streets when it started. Vanderbilt in my neighborhood was packed with kids. It was great. Every family loved it. No families used it last summer because it was just too unsafe for our children. The bikes go too fast. No one's regulating the bicyclists. No one's regulating the speed. My children have run into bikes. People have fallen from my children running into them. My children have been run over by bikes. So I just want to make sure that this year, in order to make this work, in order for people to use the streets, if it's going to be closed to cars, it needs to be closed to bicyclists as well. It doesn't make sense to have it open streets for pedestrians to feel safe on the streets and having people zooming by on their bicycles and motor bicycles as well.
So to respond to that, I think I'm first going to have to, in complete transparency, say that there's no expectation that we'll be closing Vanderbilt to bicycles. That DOT wouldn't permit it. And even if they would, there would be some significant safety issues for cyclists that would happen if we tried something like that. The thing that we wrestle with on Vanderbilt Avenue is it's a major bicycle highway on weekends. We have measured an upwards of 800 cyclists an hour on Vanderbilt Avenue in nice weather on weekends when it's an open street. And that's too many cyclists to deflect someplace else, considering that if they were coming southbound, let's say from Fort Greene.
I just want to be clear. I'm not saying there shouldn't be bicyclists. I'm saying that they need to be respecting the 5 miles an hour speed.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you said that it should be closed to cyclists as well as cars.
That to motorized cyclists or people going above the speed limit that's requested or that's signed or posted.
Okay, so it is, we'll certainly agree that it is a challenge enforcing the speed limit. What we try to do, and quite frankly, honestly, we are not law enforcement. We have no opportunity and no authority to ticket anybody, to summons anyone. It's not possible for us. What we try to do, and in general, the feedback we've received, I think, it gives us the sense that this is working, is to segment pedestrians and cyclists on Vanderbilt Avenue.
It's not working. My children have run into bikes. People have fallen off of bikes. It's dangerous out there.
What I'd like to suggest then is maybe we can take this offline and talk some more about that, because we would definitely like to understand where that's happening and what those circumstances are. And if you're willing to spend a little bit of time in talking with us about it, there may be some other solutions that'll come out of that. I mean, absolutely happy to hear to hear about your experience and try to see how we can address it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll also put my email in the chat, and you are welcome to reach me, and we'll figure out a way to get together on that. Question from Catherine Pence.
Yes, thank you. Hi. I am just concerned a little bit about the plan for redesigning Underhill Avenue, which was mentioned. I've seen the plans for that. And I've also spoken to a friend who lives in Queens that had a similar redesign on a street in their neighborhood. And they said that it turned the street into kind of a nightmare for a variety of different reasons. So for one thing, the division between, a bike lane next to the curb and then the cars and then the traffic meant that similar to what the previous speaker was talking about, the bikes don't pay attention to the traffic laws and then they just speed along those lanes. So there's actually more dangerous crossing the street because you can't see when these bikes are coming along those bike lanes. Having the one-way street going, on particular blocks would lead to a lot of turning left by the motorists so that they are actually, getting into more dangerous situations because they're kind of feeling some road rage from having to deal with the complicated turning and things like that. So that was another issue. And then Underhill is a very narrow street, so I don't understand how the medians are supposed to function because it seems like if cars are double parked, there's not going to be any room to go around them when you have these medians there, and then also with the narrowing of the lanes and things like that. So what I'm wondering is why can't we just do speed bumps, which are cheaper to slow the traffic rather than doing this very complex redesign?
It's a good question. I will say that figuring out a traffic calming solution for Underhill Avenue has been on our agenda for a long time. Underhill Avenue actually has a relatively high number of what DOT calls KSIs, accidents that result in people being killed or seriously injured. Between 2016 and 2020, they recorded 136. And on a street that has a public lower school and a playground for young children, that's a concern. So we have tried to engage DOT for many years on what we could do to help calm traffic on Underhill Avenue, and speed bumps were one of the things we suggested. That was not that was not approved because at the time the response we got was that the blocks on Underhill Avenue are too short, aren't long enough for speed bumps. We do have speed bumps, as you probably know, extensively implemented in all sorts of other streets in Prospect Heights, but we were told it wasn't possible on Underhill Avenue. And in a kind of a similar way, you'll see that there are no speed humps on Carlton Avenue either, which is kind of similar in terms of block length to Underhill. So when we had the possibility to address traffic calming through open streets, it was really very welcome. And I will say that since 2020, when the open street program began on Underhill Avenue, I don't believe there have been any KSIs recorded while open streets have been in effect. It's really had a big impact on traffic safety on Underhill Avenue.
What about on the surrounding streets like Washington and Vanderbilt, where the traffic is really super terrible, like at all hours?
Well, I think what we're looking to do is work with DOT to make improvements on all of those streets. We're doing the same thing on Vanderbilt now. Vanderbilt is getting additional curb extensions that are paint and flexi posts now that will shorten the distance people have to cross to get from one side of the street to the other, not just on open street weekends, but all the time. So that definitely will make for a safer environment on Vanderbilt Avenue.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the issue is that having the open streets on Underhill was great during the pandemic. I don't actually see anyone using open streets most of the time now. On Underhill, it's usually there's a occasional biker and occasional runner, but overall that street is basically empty throughout the day. I know you have events there occasionally and things like that, which could be shut off at certain times or whatever. But what I do see is that both Washington and Vanderbilt have extreme amount of traffic. And so having traffic calming there is not going to fix that. And what happens is that the buses are, slower. Commuting is slower for people who have to use cars for some reason, like the speaker was talking about having to go and visit her mother or whatever in Staten Island. All of those things just become really, really complicated. And then to add to that, if you do these traffic calming things on Underhill, then that means that there's going to be fewer parking spaces. So some of the issues that were brought up in relation to Vanderbilt is going to be compounded by having those parking spaces taken away on Underhill. So I just wanted to sort of think about, like, is it necessary to do such a radical restructuring on Underhill? Because I think a lot of the similar issues could be taken care of, like, by revisiting just the speed bumps and talking to the DOT about that again.
So as I said, speed bump, I mean, has been something we've proposed to DOT. It's not the solution they're coming to us with now. I think the thing to understand about Underhill Avenue as an open street is it's a different type of open street than Vanderbilt Avenue. Underhill Avenue is a limited local access street as opposed to Vanderbilt, which is a full closure street. So Underhill Avenue has really, as an open street, always been about traffic calming. It's not intended. I realize it got started in the pandemic. There were lots of, good reasons why there was a discussion about using streets for additional open space, even if cars were still allowed on them. But the model for Underhill is actually a traffic calming model. And we're very, very hopeful that the street improvements that come in there will result in our being able to remove the barriers that are there now. So we have people, for instance, now who would prefer not to have those blocks of Underhill be limited to local trips. They will get that back when the French barriers go and the other street improvements come in. It will come at as you pointed out correctly, it will come at a loss of a small number of parking spaces. I have to, I guess at this point, and I wanted first, in full disclosure, acknowledge that I'm a car owner and I park on the street, and it's hard in this neighborhood to park on the street. I don't know of any time in the future that I expect parking to get easier in this part of Brooklyn. I don't know anybody else who feels that way either. And I think we really have to consider what it is we're making accommodations for. I mean, we're going to have a lot more people living in this part of Brooklyn, assuming there's some day where Atlantic Yards gets built out. That's another 16,000 people that are supposed to live in those buildings. They'll need open space, and we'll have a lot more pedestrians on the street as well, even as we do now. So I do believe that pedestrian safety and cyclist safety will become a more and more important issue as the population of the neighborhood grows up. And that's kind of what we're trying to get ahead of here. And beyond that, again, as I mentioned before, Underhill Avenue is a street that really is appropriate as a quiet local street. It does have a public lower school on it. If you come out in the morning, I don't know if you have family that attends that school, but if you come out in the morning, you'll see that there are a lot of families that do walk down the street, bringing their kids to school in the morning. And it has a playground that is expressly intended for young children. So the idea that this can be a place with less traffic makes a certain amount of sense on that street. It's a street that isn't a natural through street. It begins and ends in Prospect Heights. It doesn't go anywhere. And it's unusual in that respect. We do, as a neighborhood, exist kind of in the crook of Atlantic Avenue, Flatbush Avenue, Eastern Parkway, and to some extent, Washington Avenue. So we get a lot of through traffic in this neighborhood. It's striking when you go to some of the surrounding neighborhoods and walk through Clinton Hill or Fort Greene and notice how much less traffic is on the side streets. It's not unreasonable to ask for one residential street in Prospect Heights that's a quiet local street. I think that's been kind of our philosophy. But I would certainly encourage you to attend the meeting, the town hall meeting, and we're happy to share more of the plans will be known then. We're very interested in a diverse group of perspectives on it as well.
Thank you.
Any other open streets questions? I'm sorry, I've kind of commandeered this part of the program from Saskia, but I appreciate everybody's patience. If not, I'd like to move on to our next set of reports. We have two committees left. First is the Technology Committee. Although I'm not a chair or co-chair of that committee, I'll make that report briefly because
Yeah, I can actually make it if you'd like.
Oh, great. Oh, Phil is back. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Absolutely, Phil. I'll turn it over to you then.
Yep. My name is Phil. I co-chair the new technology committee with Aiden Feldman. Generally, our goal is to solve any pain points and that we may have and be able to enable PHNDC to work more effectively and sustainably through technology. A lot of this initial work came as part of managing our open streets, managing events, volunteers, scheduling, things like that. And we're trying to kind of increase our scope and be able to help across committees and across functioning of PHNDC. The first step that we've taken so far has been just getting an inventory of the landscape of tools that we use across PHNDC, so that we can better manage them. And then we've started making some steps at kind of centralizing some of our credentials and passwords. Next step for us is consolidating a lot of the tools that we use for newsletters and mailing lists. And then after that, we're planning on tackling a lot of our organizational uses of file sharing and things like that. A lot of that stuff is in a lot of personal accounts and not in really any centralized place where someone who's looking for information can know where to go. So those are kind of the few things we're trying to tackle first. We'd love for anyone who's interested to come join us. You don't need to be super technical. A lot of these solutions have kind of low-tech solutions. It's really just figuring out what the right way to do it is. So anyone who's interested, please reach out to Aiden and I.
All right, thanks, Phil. Any questions for Phil on technology and our new technology committee? All right, I'm going to move to our final committee report, which is volunteer experience. Steve Flack, who is the chair, was not able to attend the meeting tonight, but Carrie is here, and I will turn over the floor to Carrie for the volunteer experience committee.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie, pronouns she, her. And yeah, the Volunteer Experience Committee is a new committee. We actually haven't even had a chance to formally meet yet. But yeah, we're looking forward to kind of streamlining the experience for people who wish to volunteer with PHNDC in a variety of ways. You know, whatever your skill set or interest is, we want to help you find the right place to put that to good use. We've had a lot more volunteers step up to the plate since Open Streets started, which is awesome. But you know, through all the different reorganizations and things we've had regarding Open Streets and the amazing growth, you know, it happens sometimes. People get kind of kicked over to a specific committee to help them, and then we find they fall through the cracks. So this is hopefully between Steve and I and the work of the committee, we can find some good ways to help onboard new volunteers more smoothly and keep people engaged in the ways that that will be fulfilling to them and the neighborhood. So any ideas you have for this new committee, please let us know, either myself or Steve. And yeah, just looking forward to getting started on this. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Carrie. Any questions? All right, well, that concludes our committee reports. We're now going to move back to the subject of our annual election, and I am once again going to turn the floor over to Saskia.
Thank you. I just sent one missing ballot. If there's anyone else who believes they should have received a ballot, or if you received a ballot and did not vote yet, this is your final chance to do so. I'll wait for those final votes to come in, but All right, not hearing anyone else who is still missing their ballot or failed to vote so far. So with that, I will announce the election results and close voting. Well, the other way around, rather. All right, the results of the election are as follows. Gib Vucconi has been elected as chair. Emily Liu is elected as secretary. For the at-large director term for 2024, we have Jason Samero. For the at-large directors for the 2025 term, we have Steve Flagg and Reggae Johannes. Congratulations to everyone elected. And this completes my duty here, and I'll return the meeting to Gib.
Thank you, Saskia, and congratulations again to all of you who have been elected to new terms on the board of the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. I want to thank our outgoing directors, Al Bass, Rafael Murtil, and Raquel White, with whom it's been a pleasure to serve over the last few years. Al and Rafael both have been with us for a long time and really, really appreciate your insight and your commitment to helping the work of PHNDC. I definitely hoping to see you all around the neighborhood in the future, especially Al, who I know may be spending some time outside of Brooklyn in the near future. But thank you all so much. It's really been wonderful serving with you all. Then at this point, we have an opportunity for any further public comments that haven't been made yet during our committee reports. Comments from members as well. If you'd like to raise your hands, we'll recognize you. I see Carla Lewis. I don't know if you're raising your hand or if that's applause. So it looks like you put your hand down. So I'll.
Yes, that was a raise hand because I don't know how to do the emojis.
Oh, okay, go ahead then.
But I was clapping for you too because you've done a great job. All right, so I'm a resident on Carlton Avenue. I probably have been here with my family in car for over 20 years before most of you moved to the area. First question is, do you know why Carlton Avenue has been targeted for so many city bike locations that take up a lot of parking? Also, I would like to ask all of our neighbors to be more considerate when it's cleaning the street day. I know we all, those of us who have cars, alternate side of street parking is very difficult and cumbersome, but we can sit in our cars. But when you see the cleaning truck come, I ask everyone to please move to the alternate side because our streets aren't getting clean and the neighborhood's not as clean as it used to be because there are so many, cars there and people they don't bother moving them, or they sit in them, but they don't move it when the truck comes along. So our streets aren't getting clean and you can see it now. And it's a big difference from 25 years ago since I've been here. So I'm asking everyone to be, more considerate of our neighborhood. And I get the whole alternate side and sitting in your car so you don't get a ticket. But when you see that cleaning truck come, move to the opposite side so they can clean our streets. But the question is also, do you know why Carlton Avenue is getting so many city bike locations, which take up multiple parking spaces?
So that's a great question. And first of all, I want to say that when City Bike deploys new docks into a neighborhood for the first time, they do go before the community board. There's a discussion about the locations and such. When they move docks after they've already gone into a neighborhood, they do not go to the community board. We have no role in it. There's no announcement made, or there might be an announcement made through the community board, but there's no public input. So I'd like to try to answer your question, but it's going to kind of be speculation. The dock at 535 Carlton has been there since 535 Carlton opened and City Bike came in. So that's kind of been there. The second dock that came into Carlton Avenue, which I think is around St. Mark's, between Prospect and
Yes,
St.
correct.
Mark's.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a wandering City Bike dock. It used to live on my block. It was actually like a little bit down the street from my house, and I would like it back from you. But the problem we have is that I live on the block of Park between Vanderbilt and Underhill, which is almost completely torn up with a water and sewer project. And so that dock was moved from my block when the water and sewer project happened. And it was placed near the corner of Prospect and Vanderbilt. And so from my perspective, that wasn't as convenient as having it on my block, but I didn't have to go too far for it. Unfortunately, Con Ed came in, or no, I'm sorry, I think National Grid came in and had to do work on the block of Prospect between Vanderbilt and Carlton. And so City Bike moved it again, and this time they moved it to your block. I don't know if it's going to move anywhere else, but I can tell you that as soon as the Department of Design and Construction leaves my block, I'm going to call City Bike and ask for my City Bike dock back. So hopefully it will travel back to Park Place after that point and not take up additional parking on Carlton Avenue.
Thank you.
Let's see. Any other? Don't see any other hands right now. Were there any other comments, questions? Okay, I will then move on to new business. I do not have any new business to introduce this evening. Are there any other members that have new business for the council tonight? I do not see any hands. And so although our final agenda item is old business, I'm sorry, I reversed old business and new business. We didn't have any old business. And it looks like we don't have any new business to introduce this evening. So I believe this concludes our agenda for this evening, and I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Rick. Is there a second? Second from Saskia. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, I'll thank you once again for attending our 2023 annual meeting. Thanks to all of our directors who are here this evening and our members, and all of you who are joining us for the first time. Encourage you, if you are interested in what you heard this evening, to visit phdc.org/join and consider becoming a member of the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. And beyond that, we'll wish you all a pleasant rest of the evening. Thank you very much. The meeting's adjourned.